The golden rule is the principle of treating others as one wants to be treated. It is a maxim that is found in most religions and cultures. It can be considered an ethic of reciprocity in some religions, although different religions treat it differently. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The man that I'm about to interview lives by this golden rule. He is a friend, a colleague, an innovator in the legal marketing space, an innovator and pioneer in starting and working in the marketing of mass torts. He's a father to 3 amazing children, a man of great taste, and a man of valor. I introduce you to my friend, colleague, someone who's been a client and a friend for so long, loyal to me and to our business. I thank you for being on the show, Ed Lake. Welcome, friends, and happy afternoon. This is Alex Valencia, your host on another episode of the We Do Marketing Hour. Today is Wind Down Wednesday, and I have my friend and guest here, Ed Lake, who I've known for almost over a decade now. And in honor of Wind Down Wednesday, Ed Lake, who is a wine connoisseur, is always traveling and going to Napa. And every time we go out, he had an amazing wine feast when we were down in South Beach in NTLA not so long ago with Danica Patrick. So Ed was awesome enough to bring one of his bottles from 100 Acre. Let's toast to that. And thank you so much for being on the show. Super excited to have him here. Oh my gosh, tell me a little bit about this bottle. Wow. Damn, that's amazing, dude.
Well, I mean, all I really know, I can tell you, it's 100% Cab, Napa Valley. The guy who started this company, I don't remember his name.
It was, I looked it up a little while ago. You told me to look it up.
He's from Australia.
Jason Woodbridge.
Independently wealthy, decided, I don't know how the story went as far as how he became interested in Napa, ended up in Napa, and has made some of the best wines since he's been there. So try to even, make a better wine. Very difficult to get. You have to be on a list. That's a lot of restaurants can't get it. I was lucky enough to have a friend of mine, give a shout out to Greg Reed, who took us to a wine tasting at 100 Acres owner's office. It was quite an experience. So the 2017 is probably one of the best.
That's
so
amazing.
I figured I would bring it for Alex, and maybe each Wednesday we'll try one from a different region.
Oh, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Wind Down Wednesdays. So, ladies and gentlemen and listeners, I've had the pleasure of knowing Ed Lake for 11 years since I got in the industry about 15 years ago, but I happened to meet Ed Lake through some of the conferences. I don't know if it was a Great Legal Marketing, and then we ran into each other at, was it Pelma? And then we met each other at Dan Kennedy, and we immediately started working. So not only has Ed Lake been a friend and a client, but he's always supported our business since we've been together. And not only that, but
I think I was one of your first clients, right?
You were definitely one of my first clients.
In fact,
with Jacobino Lake.
Yeah. How do you remember what the deal was? How many articles for how much money?
It was, I think it was $6,000 a month.
No, it was no. So cheap.
Was it?
No, it was $6,000 a month.
Yeah, it was
30 articles.
Probably for 30 articles.
It was $200 an article from scratch.
Yeah, from scratch. All developed on the site. And they were still working the last time I checked on the Jacobino site. They were still optimizing and still performing. But not only is Ed Lake, was he a partner of Jacobino, but you have also Lake Law, right? The Lake Law firm?
Yep. So I still with Jacobino Lake, but I do some things on the Lake Law firm with other associates. So it's working out well.
And Persist, right? We Persist for what? How long?
Well, I developed Persist, which is a software, but I guess about 7 years ago.
But did you develop Persist for your law firm first, and then you saw how it would enhance other people's law firms in their practice?
It was really like other people asked me about it.
Right.
I didn't have a name or anything probably until 3 years into it.
Right.
And to me, it was just, you want to know the story, how it started?
Yeah.
Okay. So we started doing mass torts in 2002. And our first marketing was at the National Enquirer, put in an ad. We were the first lawyers ever to be in there. Shout out to Dan Keefe, his deal. And I remember the first day we got 140 faxes.
Wow. Faxes.
Back then, yeah. That's what I remember, right? So that's kind of what started. Now, what happened was we started doing volume because mass tort store and mass means all you had to do a lot of them.
Right.
And I couldn't handle all the volume. We had issues with the call center, cherry picking. They were only calling back on the newer leads. So the older ones were getting discarded or not even, so not having any attention to them. And there was a conflict between my partner, and the person who was running the call center. And I didn't really know how to deal with it. Now, prior to me going to law school, I used to be a salesperson in one of my jobs was selling telephone systems. So I called up someone who I knew in the telecom business, and I'm like, hey, is there a way where I can program a call where my agents have no say in it? In other words, the machine dials, not, just a dialer. We go, huh? We're talking about 10 years ago, right? So an automatic dialer. So that's what started it. Now, what happened after that was the dialer wasn't enough because all the dialer would do is dial the calls. We then heard about something called an IVR, which everybody knows. It's, dial one for this, dial two.
Right.
But in this application, it was used to determine whether the person answering the outgoing call made by the dialer was a live person or a voicemail. And that was important for a number of reasons. If the IVR determined that it was a live person, within a half a second, it transferred the call to my agents. So my agents thought it was an incoming call, but it really wasn't an incoming call. The machine made the outgoing call, a person answered the phone, and then it was connected.
Right.
Which means my agents are now not wasting time making calls, right? And forget about that they don't get a choice anymore, which one and which not, but they're also not wasting time.
Exactly.
The next step was, well, what happens when the machine determines it's not a live person? So I'm like, well, let's leave a voicemail. Okay. And that's kind of what started it. Now, the most interesting thing to me of this was when we started the dialer, a lot of people wouldn't answer the phone because they don't know the number, right? They think my clients tend to be lower demographics financially, and they don't know who's calling them. It could be collection agency. So I said, okay, let's send a text message saying who we were that just called them. So hopefully the next time we call, they'll be more likely to pick up. Hey, this is the law office. We just called you. We're going to call you back. That was the next morning, I come up and I see 28 messages with our backup answering service. Normally we get 3. What happened, I figured out, was that once we sent the text message, people wanted what we were offering and they were just calling us. They weren't waiting for us to call them back.
Wow.
And then I'm like, I had a wow moment.
Yeah, it's a wow moment.
Right.
Sure.
And then I'm like, okay, well, now back then text messaging had just started.
Yeah.
So we didn't know that it was so much better than email. Back then, email was the best.
Mm-hmm.
So we then included email. My first logo had an email, a text message, a phone, and a hard copy. Because we were still, in my practice, doing a lot by FedEx. Right? So, but it was automating. Okay, then I started thinking, okay, we have to make this logical. What do you mean logical? Well, I don't want to keep leaving the same message. Thank you for calling the law office. Please call me back. So let's make it a logical sequence. So the first message is, thank you for calling or sending us a contact form. We called you. You didn't call us back. Please leave a message. That's when IVR recognizes it's a voicemail machine, not a live person. Okay. So now we've left the message. After we made a call, we sent a text, and then we sent an email. Now, we don't do that every single day because we were doing it every single day and people were getting irate. On the other hand, you don't want to do it never because that's not what it is.
Right.
So you have to find.
Yeah, there's a happy balance. Yeah.
I mean, that's trial and error. The next interesting part was that I had that the dollar didn't know, not that, okay, how do I would have people that I was paying in the call center available. We had calls being made to California up to 9 o'clock at night. The call center people are there up only, let's say, at 9 o'clock. But if they're till 9 o'clock at night to handle the California calls and they dial out, it's really midnight in New York.
Right.
And now I'm in trouble. So we had to write code. Okay. Well, that didn't solve the problem because then voice smartphones came along and you could have a 212 number and be in any state you want.
Right, exactly.
But okay, at least we're trying.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't.
Right.
Otherwise, it's even more difficult that I have to figure out what cell tower,
where it bounced up, yeah.
And then not
That's
do
a lot
it.
of
But
work.
it hasn't been a problem. Okay. Then I wanted, as I said, a sequence. I didn't want every voicemail to be the same. The first one should be an intro. The second one should be, hey, we tried you. You haven't called us back. Call us back. A reminder. And the third one should be, listen, we've done this, this, and this. You don't call us back. We're not going to be your attorney. There's no attorney-client relationship formed. And we're going to close your file. And the fourth one was, we're closing your file. And I did that. So, and then I'm like, well, you know what? I don't really like the sound of my voice, even though people tell me I have a voice for radio. We hired a professional to do the voices for the voice. And that worked great. And we started to automate the signings. Right? Probably the first one to use DocuSign.
Mm-hmm.
When I started doing DocuSign, it was 95% FedEx, 5% DocuSign. Now it's the other way around.
A lot more, right?
No, it's almost exact.
Yeah,
it's almost because the only people who really want hard copy FedEx is be bothered with that kind of stuff are either older people or just people don't trust.
Right.
Just don't trust it. There's always be a certain percentage.
Yeah.
Then I decided to add more features. For instance, you really want to hear all this?
Yeah.
I'm probably boring people.
Well, we'll jump into something else after.
All right, good. But this is really the good part, the fun part. Now, okay, so now I have set up to it can call. I have agents ready to take the call, and now I have to automate the intake. I automate the intake. What does that mean? It means that it's a smart intake. Questions asked, depending upon how you answer, depends on whether we go back to the next question.
Exactly, love it. Yeah.
Okay, this way the call center agents didn't need to know every nuance.
Right.
Why? Because I deal with multiple law firms and they have different criteria.
Yep.
For instance, one person might want a 60. They take a client who's 69. Another law firm wants 72. How can if I expect an agent, they got to spend time looking.
Right.
Okay. All right. Then so I automate that part, and then I automate the distribution. What do I do? I have co-counsels. Some have more cases than others, and I had to make the round robin so everybody was getting. Okay, I automate that part. Keep automating to this day. Then all of a sudden comes a bot. Okay, I'm trying to always be a step ahead, right? Like I'm now looking into AI, which I'll talk about a little bit about. AI is going to be really cool for law firms.
Yeah,
I'll tell you how. The applications I don't really know yet, but I can think of a few. So the bot comes along, and I see the messenger bot, and then I see a bot from and basically it asks you a question, you answer the question, and then I answer the question, answer another question. You don't have to click anything on. Right. There are no drop-down menus. That's how it's got to be. Yeah. It's just got how it's, and eventually it'll be voice activated. Right. It'll be like Siri or Alexa. All right. So we start developing the bots, and this is all recently, right? Maybe we just finished in the last few weeks. So now imagine the scenario. We call first. When do we send the bot? Well, now I'm going to change the whole thing. Now it's going to be a text message. Why a text message first? That has the best open rate. Text message will be introduced. This is Jackie. Link. You inquired. Click here for the bot. No, I'm going to say for the bot. Click here to determine if you qualify. Now they click, and they start getting asked the questions. Now, and at the end, if they qualify, the e-sig comes up, and they sign. No more calls to agents. Now, why is that helpful? Number one, it reduces, just the public should know whoever's talking.
Right.
It's $100 to $150 to sign up a client.
Right. So it's cheaper on the case value, right?
2 cents.
Yep.
What does it cost to send a text? 2 cents,
yep.
$150. Plus, that's not charged back to my client as an expense. That's something that comes out of my.
So you're delivering that savings back to whoever,
or myself,
firm, right? Yeah.
Whoever.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Okay. Now, but I said, but the problem with a bot, and the same problem that I have when we advertise on the internet is people sometimes think it's a scam. Who's this? You say it's a law firm. How do I know it's a law firm? About, and this, my friend doesn't even know this, about 3 years ago, the same person who told me about the IVR said, hey, the future's going to be video messaging. No, it never happened. People still don't really do that.
Yeah.
We, what do you call it? On the iPhone, they have the, what is it?
FaceTime.
FaceTime. So people use some
people.
Yeah, but not for business, right? Not really for business. Nope. So you feel like you're intruding. And I gotta know. I gotta watch what right. Okay. But I said, wait a minute. The problem with the bot is it's cold. People don't know they have an actual lawyer, and whether it be they're at the stage where they haven't signed yet, or at the stage where they have signed and they haven't really heard from anybody, they're uneasy. It's not a good customer experience. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. This is going to be an easy fix. Let's do video. So next week in Manhattan, shout out to Randy Nordstrom, Randy and his crew is coming, and we're going to do a series of videos. Nobody's really done this before.
So it feels like they're talking to him.
No, it's going to be like this. Someone sends it. Let's say someone sees an ad on Facebook, fills out the contact form, which is really a smart thing. Because the difference is maybe 5 questions.
Right.
Okay? And then when it says to sign up, it says, we're willing to take you under investigation. You have the right to take us out at any time. There's no obligation, no cost to you. Then it's, okay, now let's say it was not a phone call where the agent that I had took it immediately like on a TV commercial. It was an internet ad. It was what they call posting. So now I'm going to send out the text. As I said, the link, they fill out the bot, and before they fill out the bot, they get a video of me or one of my associates saying, hi, this is Ed Lake from the Lake Law Firm. I want you to know this is how the process is going to go. And all the details that I could give within 3 to 5 minutes. And so it's introductory. It's to put a face to the name. And it's also to answer a lot of the questions that they want to know immediately. And instead of them having to call, we're going to tell them that. How do I know the questions? I've been doing it for 25, 30 years. I've spoken to literally tens of thousands of clients. Pretty much, it's the same questions, right? Status of the case, how much is it worth? When is it going to happen? What if this? What if that? What if that? Okay. Now, after they sign, within, I think we're going to do 30 minutes, they're going to get another. Thank you so much for your faith in me. Your case is now going to be assigned to our intake department. This is the direct line to the intake department. They're going to call you within 24 hours to confirm all the information on the intake. It is important that you look for this number, 800, sign it now or whatever we decide. And you answer it so that we don't have to chase you, because non-cooperation could mean non-payment on this claim. I'm going to call that back. Now, we have a lot of outsourced companies that handle getting our medical records from clients, doing the medical review, doing what we call plaintiff faction. There's a time, I don't want to have to sign the case up, refer the person out.
Exactly. And
then have them, a week later, try to reach out. What we're doing now is, on that first intro call that I just told them to look out for, we're going to verify all their information and then set up their onboarding call at the date and the time, whoever the third party is, right then and there, so they know. And then my software, Persist, will be programmed to not only make the call, but to give both the person who's going to be calling and the person who's expecting the call a notification about 30 minutes before.
Nice.
And this is all because we find, and for nobody's fault, that because you're dealing with thousands of clients, it's very easy to lose some. And for a variety of reasons, you don't want that to happen. Whether the client, I don't want to say disappear, couldn't contact you for a reason, and now all of a sudden, years later, shows up and is horrified that you closed the claim out because you couldn't get their new phone number, which we, by the way, we persist. We do every 6 months now. We're doing it. It says your current contact, press 1. If it's not, press 2. Nice. They press 2, goes right to my receptionist, and we change the phone. That's another important part. This is all about and the second part of it is making the client happy. So when they call in, right now, let's say the client calls in, now they know it's late, they feel confident. They have some business to call 3 months later, whether it be they got a bill or they got something from their doctor or they just want to know what's going on. Here's what normally their experience is. Thank you for calling the law office, Jack. If you know the link, if you know the number, the extension you want, please dial it now. If you want a company directory, dial 1. If you want the receptionist, dial 0. So let's go through it. How many people know the extension number of the 0? Okay, unless you have a letter that says it, and someone's really looking for it. So maybe 5% feel lucky, right? So most people are going to pick the receptionist, which is hold on, or the company directory. But people don't like that anymore because punch in the first 3 initials of the last name. Now, first of all, what if the last name's Jones? You could have 20 Jones. Yeah, exactly. And what if you don't know how to spell the name?
You're missing a lot of opportunities.
Okay, so normally you're going to go through reception. All right, now what happens? Well, one of a number of things. You either get a live person. Now, from my perspective, in order to make sure that I had a live perspective, every single time somebody calls, I probably have to have multiple receptionists. And some law offices do that. They have 4 people answering the phone. Yeah. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. Okay? What's the second thing? Well, if the receptionist is busy, it call forwards to somebody else. Okay, who's the somebody else? Well, if it's a paralegal, they're not trained to know where the call should be going. So now the client's getting frustrated because it's getting left on hold or transferring you around. People don't like that. Or they get a voicemail, which is the kiss of death, because now you got to call them back.
Right.
Or a voice or an answering service, same thing. You got to call. It's a little better. They feel the live person, but you still got to call them back. You call them back. They're not there. They call you back. You're back. And I'm thinking, how do I do this so people don't have to go through this? Now, the airlines figured out a way. Well, we're going to tell them, the computer can figure out approximately when we can call them back. And I'm like, wait a minute. The vendor is telling the customer when it's convenient for the vendor to call the customer back? No, that's not how it should be.
Yeah, it's not customer service.
Okay. Then Apple tries it, and they say, well, we're going to give you the schedule. Go in and schedule. But it's kind of the same thing. Because if
availability,
the Genius bar is full, that day you can't. So I'm like, how do we do it where it's up to the client? So this is what I've come up with, and you're going to tell me what. Right? First, I had to explain to you a little bit of how the functionality works. Persist, whether it's the new version, which can be its own standalone CRM, or the way it is now, which is like a monkey on a CRM's back. Whichever one, the CRM has information in it. Now, if you program it correctly, as a person calls in, and the agent takes their information, or a contact form comes in and somehow it's uploaded automatically into your CRM, which there are now software that can do that, mail parsers, stuff like that. You can do it through APIs, the information, right? The information goes in, and now it's stored. Now, if you ask the question, or if it's on the contact form, what's your cell number? What's your alternative number? What's the third alternative number that you might call from?
Right.
Okay, now we got that. They're signed up. 3 months later, you call back. And now here's your experience. Ed Lake, how can I help you? I'm calling about my case. Is this John Jones? From 22? Yeah, how do you know that? Well, we have a system program. So this is how it basically works. The call comes in. Remember, it's caller ID.
Right.
The CRM looks at the caller ID, puts the two together. Oh, I see that one. I know that. That's in my database. Then it says, where's the call to go? Wait a minute. It's assigned to Ed Lake, extension 122. Call sent to me. I get the call. Up on my computer comes John Jones's information.
Nice.
It takes a quarter of a second.
Right.
Now, I had to take it further because I refer out. Well, I shouldn't refer out.
Okay.
I co-counsel with trial firms. A lot of my mass tort cases. And a lot of my staff's time was spent answering calls and giving them the information to call the person who's actually handling the case now at this point.
Right.
Clients don't like it. Waste of money and time from my perspective. Using that same scenario, the same thing works. Now the client calls in, but instead of getting sent to Ed Lake, because I'm part of my law office, they get a message. Thank you for calling Jacobino and Lake. Your case is currently being handled by our trial counsel, X and X lawyers.
Better, much better.
If you'd like, we are going to transfer you to X and X lawyers right now. However, you want to speak to Jacobino and Lake, please hold on. Call gets transferred to X and X. X and X gets the same screen. They know it's coming from Jacobino and Lake. They know who the client is.
Everybody's connected. Nice. So, what are 3 awesome solutions that Persist is relieving for your clients?
It's all these pain points. Number one, from the outgo from the client
customer service, right? Client customer service.
What I call the client experience.
Yeah, client experience for sure. I mean, that kind of answers everything, right? You're offering a better client experience not only for you but for your partners or co-counsel.
Yes, and not only that, it's anytime you can automate, we know now is you get a better return.
Right.
It's more efficient,
better return,
and easier for me to work remote now.
Right.
Okay, I want to have eventually a remote, unless it's somebody who actually loves going in the office. There's no reason. I have people who work for me in Lebanon, in the Philippines, in Mexico, in Puerto Rico,
right.
in Florida, in California, all over now, right? But the more I can automate means the less I have to worry about having all these meetings on in order to effectuate what the processes is.
Exactly.
Because I'm automating it, people don't have to worry. So that's what I'm doing. Just one more quick thing so you know. Here's another problem I ever had. Many organizations will put a commercial on TV. They get 1 million phone calls. When the commercial's not on TV, they don't get any.
Right.
What do you do about that? How do you handle that from a call agent point of view? What are your possible solutions?
So you're getting more phone calls? So what's your
the commercial goes on, you get 20 calls.
Right.
The commercial goes off, you don't get any.
Well, I'm thinking diversification.
So I don't mean that. I mean, how do you handle I'll give you an example. You're advertising for wine glasses. There's a wine show that's on once a day. On that wine show, you're on 4 times a day. During that, you're getting 1 million calls. The rest of the day, you're getting overflow. People put the phone number down, they call later. But you never get the same amount. How do you know how many people to handle the calls? Now, these are guys who handle this stuff. These are like brilliant people who try to figure that out. Okay? Now, as a small business owner, it caused me a problem because many times I would either have too many, which means the call is now going back to an answer machine, which people hate, the overflow.
Yep.
Or eventually you have these other call centers now that have opened up to handle that, but they want $150 to sign the client up. Or you have to have a lot of people, which means during the slow times, they're going to be sitting there twiddling their thumbs.
Right.
Or you have to teach them to do something else, and then they don't want to be called agents anymore. Now, so I came up with this solution, and let me just back off, called client-initiated callback. And that's what I was talking about, where Apple says you can schedule a call this time. No. What happens now is when you call and it says, thank you for calling Jacobino and Lake, you're number 5 in the queue. Approximate wait time is 20 minutes. However, you can use Jacobino and Lake client-initiated callback system where you can schedule a callback on a day and time of your choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to try our system, or would you like to hold on? You've reached the Jacobino and Lake client callback system. If you would like a callback today, say today. If you like a callback tomorrow, say tomorrow. If you like a callback next Wednesday, Thursday, just say the name of the day. If you would like a callback between 9 and 12, 12 and 3, just say yes, no, yes, no. At the end of that menu, you have scheduled a call next Tuesday, 3 p.m. Next Monday at 8 p.m., you get a notification, and the next Tuesday at 2:45 p.m., you get a notification. So does the person who's making the call, who's supposed to be on the call. Because the way my system works, if you're not logged in to take a call, if there isn't someone available, call won't be made. Otherwise, call can be made, and then the client's like, hello, 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 and nothing's happening, which could be the worst. So what I'm trying to do now, either it's bots, it's the messaging, is to improve the client experience and reduce the amount of people I have to worry that I either have to hire or that I have to manage.
Right. Yeah, lowers the cost.
And it allows me to use outsourced staffing for the mundane tasks that can't be automated, but that I would have to pay double or triple for in this country, but people outside the United States do as good, if not better, job because there aren't so many jobs available in that country, right? So it allows me to be more efficient. It allows me to reduce my costs. It allows the client to be happier. It allows me to retain more clients, and hopefully other people agree.
Awesome. I mean, I think it's an excellent. I think it's evolved from when we first started, and it continues to evolve.
It's all about pain points.
Any software should. I'd like to jump in and actually go backwards now. A lot of the people that are listening might know Ed Lake from conferences, but some of you, Ed Lake might be new to you. So I want you to know the Ed Lake I know, the Afro one, the back in New York, Ed Lake. I want you to tell me, how you grew up, what family life was like, because I know you weren't originally going to be a lawyer. So I know there was a plan that happened. So let's start from there. Let's start from the humble New York beginnings. Let's do the short version.
Humble. I'll be honest with you. I grew up in upper middle class.
Right.
I call it, well, not upper middle class, upper middle class in Northwood near Long Island. My dad was an entrepreneur. But he was always creative. He went to art school before he was in the military, and eventually owned a cleaning store. Then he owned an embroidery company where he would literally design a lot of the embroidery that you might see today, what we call island, the little embroidery, flowers and stuff. That's what he would do. We would go to the diner, and on little napkins he would draw little designs. I was like, what? And on Sundays, he would drag me to Macy's, to the women's department, where he would buy all these dresses, and then the next week he would go back and return them because they call it knocking them off. And so I kind of learned what my dad taught me without knowing it was that he went through so many companies and businesses that it kind of not to worry. Like, there'll be another one come along. Yeah. And even the ones that fail, somehow or other, we never struggled. So it was, to this day, I don't, because people always say, I don't know, I wake up in the morning, I don't really worry what happened yesterday. And that's probably because that's how he was. Right? Maybe it's good or it's bad.
I mean, I've known you for over a decade, and I know that very well about you. Like, I've known different things that you've started and began and continued with, and you definitely carry that attitude alongside with you. So I don't think it's a bad trait.
No,
I think it's one of those things you dust yourself off and try again, right?
Yeah.
I know there was some ups and downs too with, vendors buying stuff, right? When the whole day buying situation, you dust yourself off, you make good, and you move on, and in
the end, it actually helps
to you, right? Of
course, because I got to tell people, it's very easy to do business with people when everything goes right.
Right.
It's when things don't go right, is someone going to try to make good or not.
Right.
And I've always been, that's mother's side to always make good. So, and then that's how you build your reputation, I guess. Okay. I always had the character. In other words, inside of me, I try to do the right thing. Whether somebody else sees it, that's you really can't.
Yeah, that you can control anybody else, right?
All I can say is that people say, "What was your motivation with success?" I'm like, fear. That's it. I got not enough time, but I went from single to married with 3 kids in 3 years in law school. The whole life. So it's what else choice do you have? You got to bring in the bacon. You can't. Too many people counting on you, right? When you're single, it's a little easier to be depressed.
Yeah.
You can't.
You got no time to be depressed.
You can't. Otherwise, you're letting down people,
right?
And they can't do it, right? It's either you or nobody. An 8-month-old baby, and an autistic child, and whatever. So I had a lot on my shoulders.
Yeah.
But even starting a practice from the ground up, I was in number 147 law school out of 147 at the time, and we had just gotten our accreditation at the 10 years. One company came to, most of when seniors, 3 Ls graduate, you're supposed to be able to go to different law firms and interview. We had one.
Wow.
Okay, so nobody came. There were no jobs. It was a recession when I graduated. I'm going to back up. I was 30 when I went to law school, left a job, as I said, in the phone business, making about $100K.
100K back then was a lot, too.
For a single guy.
Yeah.
Right. And to having no job and and having twins on the way and being married. I'm like, no.
Was your wife working?
She was, thank God. That's
yeah. And still, no longer married, but still an amazing relationship with your wife and your daughters. I love seeing that all grown up in law school, right?
One of them's in law school, one of them's a teacher.
Yeah.
And then my third one's an autistic child. And like I tell everybody, I think she's got it figured out because she's always happy.
She's always happy.
She's always doing what we're all trying to do all day long is be happy.
Yeah.
She just is.
She figured it out.
As long as she has her needs.
Right.
She doesn't worry about bullshit.
So here we are, law school. You graduated law school.
Okay, let's back up before law school. So my dad was always an entrepreneur. My dad took me into the garment center where he had some businesses. And then in about 1980, after graduating University of Maryland, undergrad, went to Brockport in Maryland. I expected to be in my father's new business. And the business just went bust. And because they couldn't get the goods from China, and that's when China always took over the garment center. And there was no more garment center, there was no more businesses. And I was like, okay. So I went to the phone, I sold phones, I sold computers, and then it's like for 10 years, from 1980. In fact, I worked for a company as a collection agent. No, in Astoria, Queens, on Steinway Street, where I had to go into the projects, knock on doors, and ask for money. Now, I was a 19-year-old skinny Jewish kid from, Long Island, and getting apples and bananas thrown in my head. And I'm like, I'm never doing this again, okay? All right, so I left that, but that was the only job there was.
Right.
Evan Ifcha, thanks for that job. Literally, for some reason, every time I graduate college or law school, there's always a recession. Those are the 2 worst recessions we've ever had the year that I graduated both. So I had to take the work, in law school, here's the best story. The one I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
So I graduate law school, there's no jobs. Right before, but people should know, between graduating law school and getting admitted to the bar, it could be 6 months to a year, because you first have to take the bar exam, and then you have to get admitted. So you graduate like in May or June, and then and the bar is usually like, you don't find out till November. And then by the time you're sworn in, for me, it was April. It was like 9 months later. What do you do, right? Maybe you get a job at a law firm like I had, but not everybody can do that because the law firm doesn't know whether you're going to be around it.
Right.
Okay, so there's no jobs. I'm working part-time, free for a judge, which turned out a very good relationship. And when I graduated, his law clerk helped me. And I was working at a, what do you call it? Country club, for like $10 an hour. And then this is while I was in law school. Graduated law school, and I got a job through the person I just mentioned from the judge. This was Judge Malloy in Nassau County. pretty famous judge. He's law secretary. And I get a job as an intern, summer, and I guess I was getting my car washed. And I'm in the car wash. In front of me is, I can remember, I can see it in front of me, a silver BMW 727, whatever the 7 Series, like the most expensive car. And I see a guy come out of the car right before he's about to get into the wash. I'm right behind him. He gets out of his car and he opens up his trunk. Now, back in the day, we had something called red wells. And a red well was this big red folder that allowed you to put all these other folders in it and had a big string, if you remember. And lawyers, that was the file. You had a file room and you used red wells. And he was taking the red wells, obviously, out of the back of the seat of his car and putting them into the trunk so someone could clean the back seat of his car. Now, one thing I have coonies. I get out of my car and I stop the guy and I go, listen, my name is Ed Lake. I know it's going to sound crazy, but I'm just graduated law school. You don't by any chance know any jobs available. And he looks at me and goes, actually, I do. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I work for XYZ Insurance Company's law firm, and my job is to schedule every day the 50 to 100 depositions that XYZ law firm through XYZ insurance company gets to defend in car accidents throughout the Nassau, Suffolk, Brooks, and the 5 boroughs.
Wow.
And what I do is they give me, let's say, 50 a night, and then I have 20 independent, 30, 40, 50, 100 lawyers, and I call them up and I say, do you want to do this one? Do you want to do this one? All right, you ask me how much you want to do. $100 and plus parking expense, no health insurance. Think about that, guys. That would mean the most I could make is if I did 2 a day is $200 a day as a lawyer.
Wow.
Okay, that's max $50K. Now that wasn't so bad then because any other job, I was drinking out my bills and I figured out I needed $35K. So I was okay. And that's how I learned. And I would say, and he was letting me do them, and the judges were letting me do them even before I was admitted. Because I would just say, I'm not admitted yet. And I would do 2 or 3, sometimes a day, outside the Bronx County courthouse because there wasn't enough room in the deposition. And I learned how to do an automobile deposition. I never took it forward because it's very hard to be a managing and practicing growing and also be a trial lawyer when you have nobody to teach you or cases to try. At any rate, so just to back up, I'm in law school, first day. I'm 30, everybody else is 20, 25, right? I'm kind of having a heart attack, like, how am I going to do this? First of all, as most of you can tell, I'm kind of hyper. To get me to sit for 50 minutes, I have ADHD. Back then, when I was growing up, they called it bad conduct.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
That's what it was.
I got D's in conduct. Yeah. I was always the bad, I didn't raise my hand or whatever. Now I would pour head. Back then it was bad. That's what's changed. Now, you know what I mean? Now I can get disability. I could get everything. I could be right. I could get everything. Back then I was bad in conduct and I didn't give effort.
Right.
So I remember I'm sitting there. It's like, if any of you watch The Paper Chase, they start off by saying the first day when and it's very true. A lot of the professors, at least in my day, did. You'd sit down in orientation and they'd say, look to your right and look to your left. One of those people will not be there by the end of the year, and 2 of them won't be there by the end of the 3 years. And I'm like, well, that's me, right? I'm not going to be there. I haven't taken an exam in 15 years. These people are right out of college. Luckily, it didn't happen. And one of the reasons is a very attractive young lady walks by. And I nudge the guy next to me, total stranger. And that's Steve Jacoby. And that's my partner. And we became what they call study partners, a study group in law school. And then every time I would have a problem, I would call him up 3 o'clock in the morning. What's the rule against perpetuities? Now, any lawyer, I still don't really get it, but he the first time, he told me 100 times, but he was like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. I'll help you. And we graduated law school and we became partners, and there was no work. So basically, we took these depositions, we did property tax reductions on my mother's friends. We took some panels from the Bar Association for petty crimes.
Yeah, you could.
DUI, the simple
Yeah, you
stuff.
took on what you could.
Whatever I could do. And sometimes we had no overhead. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, then as you grow, then I don't remember how it came to be. Oh, this is another great story. So maybe we're 2 years in practice, 3 years, done a couple of PI personal injury cases from friends and relatives. I'm always looking to see how I'm going to get more cases. So I went to the New York Law Journal. Hang in there, it says, co-counsel law firms wanted, financial investment required. That was it. And I sent my partner home. And he calls me back and he goes, I had to walk up 4 stories. This Brooklyn brownstone, and this lawyer sitting behind this huge desk with this ponytail and like 500 files around him, telling me we got. How many files? See, I didn't think.
Yeah, right, exactly. You
My
start
brain
adding it up.
Yeah, I didn't know. No, I'm like, he was more about, I don't know if this is ethical, how do we have the money? I'm like, how many files? Because all I was thinking was, what my father taught me is inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? And his concept was basically what I've copied a million times. Give us X amount of dollars up front for what it cost us to generate the case. At the end of the case, we will subtract that versus the percentage that you have to pay us. If the case is no good, we will pay you. Wow. Okay. So now we go from 10 cases to 150 because so I come up with X amount of dollars that my father lent. Now we're settling some of the cases. We're starting to make some money. And all of a sudden, I don't remember how, but the same person who ended up getting me the National Enquirer calls me up and says, would you like to be involved in 1-800-CONTASO? Which I guess means hit. Spanish. Contazo means impact.
Yeah. Right, impact. Yeah.
Okay, because impacto was taken, so it was Contazo.
And this was New York, right? Yeah, yes. So it's slang. It would be more of a Puerto Rican slang, which is the majority person in that demographic at that time.
Correct. Yeah. It was Puerto Rican and Dominican.
Yeah, Puerto Rican and Dominican around that time.
Early 80s. Because Puerto Ricans were Brooklyn, Queens, and Dominican was all Washington.
Yeah.
So that was the word they used. Right. And then I remember it was the same kind of deal. Except that instead of having to share the cases, it was the same money up front, but I really didn't have to pay them back end.
Had you already set up Jacomino Lake?
Oh, this is years.
Okay.
We're now 4 years.
Yeah, you're 4 years in.
Yeah. And we do Contazo, and that brings in another couple of hundred cases. And something happens with Contazo, I don't remember, and they stop. They ran out. For all their advertising, it probably was doctors who were. Right. Oh, and while this is going on, I'm getting fed cases from what turns out to be the Russians that came back, the Russian Jews that came right out of Russia during Perestroika. And for some reason, they all got into a lot of car accidents. And they all had full coverage. And I would go to the doctors and sign up 15 people in a day.
Wow.
In an office this size. And I'm not exaggerating. It was maybe your office is bigger. And I thought it was okay. I was a naive little kid. And then one day, Allstate calls up. If you remember, this is after the market crashed, the .com. I don't remember what happened. They couldn't make money in the market anymore, so they said we're not paying on any soft tissue cases in New York, and we're not paying on any case that we believe is SUI. That's a security. What do you call it? Special Investigation SIU unit, and basically, if they have a name that we believe, ends in SKI, we're not paying. So all of a sudden, oh my God, out of the blue, same guy who got me Contazo, same guy who got me the National Enquirer for many years later. Would you be interested in 1-800 lawyers in New York?
Wow.
Now, at that time, there was no competition for 1-800 lawyers. There was no 1-800 lawyers and everybody else. Give you background on 1-800 lawyers to Bruce Davis. I was able to acquire it after 800 numbers just started, him and his partner.
That's a
His
good
partner
number.
had some issues. They had to sell the number. They sold the number to a large law firm in New York City, and they didn't think it was worth it. Then I get a call, and they're like, I'm like, well, how much? I guess I'm not saying anything wrong. I think it was $70,000 a month.
For the number?
And the advertising.
Wow.
But he only put 40 grand in the advertising. The other 30 he was pocket.
Wow.
And he would, okay, that was just, and that didn't include New Jersey or any of the other country. It was,
Right.
but it was 150 cases a month for $70,000. That's good. But I have like $5,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
This is $70,000 every month. So I'm like, how am I going to possibly do this? Well, I go, wait a minute. What if I just do the same concept that was done to me with the $300 per case, but because now I'm getting better cases.
Right.
The cases that I'm getting for back in for the $300 that I mentioned was basically chiropractic soft tissue. Now I was getting some fractures and surgeries, and people, lawyers would, it was a bigger case, so they would be willing. And so I kind of copied that. So I asked Bruce, give me 60 days where I don't have to pay, where I can get the cases in. He's like, okay, no problem. And he did that 15 years and basically built the firm. Problem was twofold. The problem is that the amount of overhead it took to deal with the phone calls, which is eventually what became why it persisted, and the overhead to handle all the cases became overwhelming. And we started having to fund the cases rather than wait to the end. And then we start paying interest as a law firm. And we've been in that cycle for where you can't get out. I think we finally got out, but a lot of law firms are in that. And one day we should really do a real about that issue.
Yeah.
How do you get out of being funded when, because these are 2-year and 3-year deals for $20-30 million. What if the case doesn't settle in that time? COVID came. They're not settling cases.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
And but it seems Wall Street's throwing money.
And that's one of the questions. We've been seeing this coming about, but how much closer are we where Wall Street's getting closer into the mass tort? They're already involved, right? Like a lot of hedge funds, funding everywhere.
Listen, it's high interest rates.
Yeah, it's high.
It's very low defaults. For attorneys, we can just close up and open up as an
right.
But the issue becomes that, number one, they don't understand it's a practice of law. It's not a sale of a commodity. And what do I mean by that? A few issues crop up. They believe something is worth investing in that you don't. They control the purse strings. If you don't take the money, then you have nothing. If you do take the money and they're wrong, not only do you owe them the money for them being wrong, but now they get interest on that.
Right, on that money.
So they win.
Either way.
And this has happened to me. Second issue, and this is probably going to ruffle some feathers. I don't understand how anybody can hire a non-lawyer to evaluate a lawyer's document and treat it as if it's a commodity, because there are judges, plaintiffs' lawyers, defendants' lawyers, and plaintiffs, and appellate courts, and Supreme Courts that can make decisions that the rest of it makes irrelevant. One judge who determines Daubert can destroy or make a litigation, which is why the hedge funds want to wait till after that. Right? But okay, what happens after 3 trials are lost? Then, it's your fault.
Right.
Even if they liked it when they passed out. It was great. Against Xarelto, everybody loved. And then we lost some trials. Then it was, well, why were you in Xarelto? Told us we loved Xarelto. made the bed.
What's hot right now?
3M
Mm-hmm.
trial coming up, I believe. In a week or two.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, we'll start to see some trials. And why is that important for anybody who's not a lawyer out there? Most defendants don't really come to the settlement table unless they have to.
Right.
Okay. And that's usually when it's close to trial or after the trial. So hopefully TAP will settle soon, although you have talks of J&J doing bankruptcy. I don't know the word shenanigans. But using the bankruptcy court to their advantage. Hopefully see some settlements on hernia mesh, at least for some of the manufacturers, and probably see some trials on that as well. There's transvaginal mesh trials continuing. Zantac, a lot of people are going, chasing those cases, but no Daubert, no decisions yet. I mean, some adverse decisions with regard to generics. Judge kind of threw those out based on preemption. Roundup is currently,
it's good.
but there's also an appeal on Roundup that they also on preemption. Preemption, by the way, is saying the federal law preempts state law. Therefore, if I couldn't comply with the federal law, then I couldn't comply with state law. It is that they couldn't change the warning. All our cases of failure to warn or inadequate warning. They couldn't change the warning because the FDA didn't accept it. Who was petitioning the FDA? California certainly wanted it, Okay,
right.
But at any rate, what else?
That makes it a good show.
Yes.
Hey, great wine. My
Is it
goodness. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Cheers again. Thank you.
All right, what else do you? So okay, so Jackie Vino and Great Lake in 2000 is when all this stuff started to change. What we call serious injury threshold. If you don't have a very serious injury in New York, a claim won't survive. And I got a card in the mail, and it said, "Come to Atlantis in the Bahamas and learn about mass torts." Now, a couple of things about that card. It was literally an index card. I mean, it was like a 3x5. It must have cost 10 cents with a stamp. Okay. Second thing that was interesting was I know what a mass tort was. And the third thing was, wait a minute, I get to go to the Atlantis and write it off as a business expense.
Right.
Okay,
what year was this?
I guess it was 2000 or 2001. And the only reason I know that is I got the card in 2002 because the conference was on September 10th.
Who held the conference? Do you remember?
Mass Torts Made Perfect.
Oh, okay.
In Atlantis. It was their second or third year. It used to be they had one in East Coast and one in West Coast.
In the year 2000?
Their first one, I guess, was 2000.
Wow.
2001 was 9/11.
Right.
So I guess they didn't have it, or maybe they had it. I guess they did have it. Maybe that was the first year. I just remember it was the second year because I was literally, maybe there were 3 people on the plane. Everyone was too scared to fly. September 10th, the year after 9/11, even though it's probably the safest because it's probably me and 3 sky marshals on that plane, right? I mean, I was, yeah. But just give you everybody, it was 50 people. There were no vendors. Now there's 1,500 people.
Wow.
100 vendors.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge now.
So that's how I got into mass torts. As I said, that's when, right after that, I put the first ad in the National Enquirer because I knew what torts to go after. A tort is particular civil wrongdoing for anybody who's not a lawyer out there. And built up an inventory, tens of thousands, and continue to do so. And help people who need help. I mean, I see myself as wearing the white hat, that a lot of people have been not just wronged, but killed and suffered through unnecessary illness because of products that are put on the market that may mean well,
Right.
but that someone does know there's a problem with it, but doesn't want the buying public to know.
Right. So it could be drugs,
Anything.
medical devices, products, right?
A
car, a vehicle, yep.
Juries get mad. I get mad when it's, wait a minute, you knew about this and didn't care because money was more. That's what it,
That's a problem when they know.
It's
right?
not so much even about the defect. It's did they know and what they do about it. And that's why we get punitive damages. That's why juries get so upset. That's why I feel like I'm wearing the white hat, not just compensating people for their loss. Yes, that's important, but hopefully I help change behavior by helping the juries with these very large verdicts that hopefully will change behavior, if not the particular defendant, the next person who might say, wait a minute, I'm going to bury this email from so-and-so who says this is not what we thought. So, for those out there who want to call us ambulance chasers, I mean, there's plenty. All I can say is, would you rather have somebody on your side who's been educated or not? And the reason I ask that question is greed is definitely involved. Many lawyers who become lawyers because they can make a big hit. I'm not going to deny that. But otherwise, would you rather those people be in finance? Would you rather them be in corporate America? Or would you rather them be helping the little guy and changing bad behavior? Especially since we do it on a contingency where we're shelling out all the money and hoping for the best. Exactly. The client has no risk except, am I getting the right lawyer? So for anybody out there, including a lot of doctors who think, shyster, ambulance chasing, money hungry, we have to make a living like everybody else. But like I ever tell or many people say, you may hate lawyers, but when you need them, we're the first ones you're going to call. Exactly. So, make up your mind. And I'll give you one little snippet that says it all about how people feel. I get a call from two calls. One is, I get a call from Money Angel lawyer, and the gentleman starts, hi, I'm calling about a car accident I had. And I'm very kind of mad at him. Okay, what day was the accident? I just want to say that I don't really believe, this is him talking, in litigation. This was like a litigation explosion when all the insurance companies and, were making believe it was all our fault, the ills of the world, and, the hot coffee and juries were out of control. But it was really the other way around. I don't normally bring claims. I think it's not the right thing to do. I'm not a litigious person. I understand. But that man I got into a car accident with, the left turn that he made, unbelievable. And I just stopped. So let me understand this now. You want to penalize someone for making a left turn? Because that's not bad behavior. That's negligent behavior. Mm-hmm. Which means you're full of it. You're just trying to rationalize why you want to bring the claim. But this is not to punish him. You're not going to change his behavior. You're not going to make the left turn next time because you sued him or not? He's not going to even know if you did. And it got me to realize what it's really about is everybody's lawsuit is phony but mine. Everybody's trying to, milk the system but me. Everybody's back pain is BS but mine. And so for all those out there who think the lawyers are the low, think about what we have to decide when we're going to represent. There's a dichotomy here of people who say, at the same time I need you, I hate you. You shouldn't hate us. All we're doing is trying to, I hate to say it, level out the playing field. Balance a little bit. The big guys have all the money. The insurance companies are close.
Well, I think that's proof of the contradictory environment that we're in right now. Anyways, I mean, like you said, you harass it and demean it till you actually need it.
It's starting to turn a little bit.
Yeah.
Over the years, juries are now not hating lawyers as much, and it's because they see how much bad behavior corporate America has done.
Right.
That's even worse than us.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's lawyers, there's car salesmen, and then there's pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies. Why? Because every time they've had a personal claim, an insurance company, you know what I mean. So and they see all that independent press coming out with J&J knew that there was asbestos, so they knew 40 years ago. So it's starting to change.
Excellent. That's great information.
Let me put it this way: there's a lot of okay. Let me back up with that. When I was 25 years old, one of my jobs was selling jewelry all over the country, Canada, Alaska, Hawaii, by myself, and selling jewelry parts to jewelry stores. Right? I'll go into some strange city I've never been to, Medicine Hat, Canada, and sell my wares. And after a year or two of going to all these cities, Chicago, New Orleans, New York, all over Miami, all the big jewelry centers, I noticed that so many of the entrepreneurs, the guys who had little booths in these, because if you go into a jewelry building, each guy has a
a whole bunch of little booths. Yep.
They all worked for somebody else who had a different booth there before. And I have to admit, I would hear these older guys, I can't believe he stole my client, blah, 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 right? And I was, just for some reason, it stuck in my mind because what stuck was, if you go back far enough, there's only two guys everybody else was like that.
Came after them, yeah.
Now, what does that have to do with what we're doing? Okay. It is 2002, Mass Torts Made Perfect, the first one. And there's a company, one of the first vendors, so maybe it was the second year, was called Einstein Law. He was the first legal web company to go out and try to get clients. This is 10 years before all you guys knew anything. Anyway, and he got all the business because he was the only one doing it. No one had websites. This is when websites were first coming. And he had about 10 or 15 salespeople. Every one of those guys, within a few years, for whatever reason, ended up owning their own company or working for a company that competed against them. And about a year ago, because this has now happened to me maybe 5 or 6 times, employees who I've trained have taken the information, made a good life for themselves, but for whatever the reason, it does affect my business. And so I was like bemoaning to him, can't believe it. There's like 6 guys. He looks at me and goes, how about 35? He had 35 employees who went and competed. So, and he said, you know what? In the end, if you're doing well, take it as a badge of honor. And think of it this way: without you, they wouldn't even be in the industry. They would know nothing of the industry, and you help build the industry. And that's how I try to think about it rather than.
I think you should, because
well, but when you're on a day-to-day thing,
right?
You're trying to do business, and you hear about somebody competing with you who, didn't know much about the business at all prior. I'm not just talking about Steve. I'm talking about multiple people who work there. And part of my problem is I'm not like most people who, as everyone can see, I say what I feel, and I don't keep things close to my chest. I don't believe in secrecy. I like to share. I don't, like I say, what am I supposed to do? Carry around an NDA in my pocket every single before I start speaking? And it has burned me, but many, many times. And people are like, I can't believe you told him that. But now I don't. Now it's like I'm an OG. I'm one of the old timers, and like the guys in the jewelry stores, it's to be expected, because what he said to me was, if I wasn't good, they wouldn't be able to be a success. In other words, if I didn't teach them the right stuff, they wouldn't be good at it. I wouldn't know what to do. Which means I was good at it. So I'll just take it as a badge of honor that that's just doing business, and you really, which is another reason I want to automate. You know what I mean?
I mean,
because a machine, a computer,
right, isn't going to do it.
They don't have to sound.
At least until we have this AI conversation. No, I love the idea that you're now thinking of it as a badge of honor, because it should. I mean, we're all in business, right? It happens in business. I've been screwed by people, partnerships that you think you have, or relationships with strategic partners. There's been 3 times where I had to rebuild this business.
I think the first time I saw you was about, you know what? It was about software for workers' comp. We won't say who it was, but something to do with Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yeah, and those were great. Yeah, that is right. So,
do you know what I'm talking about?
No, it was Casco. So, Casco. No, but that's not when we met. We met way before that. You came in and wanted to learn about that, but we had already been working together for about 5 years. So that came in.
Oh, that was years later.
And Ken Levin and Casco, and they were kind of that position where we are where we are because they helped. They were our first client and proponent for what we did.
Right.
And they helped us. But I mean, I've had other strategic partnerships where people were, third-party vendors sending us business in the past. And then they kind of learn it themselves and kind of do it internally, and you lose everything. And, you rebuild. But again, as a badge of honor, we did it so well that they took it on, and there's enough business for everyone. But
see, I got to tell you something. And my friend Michael, I don't really think of myself as anything like I did anything special. All I've been trying to do is make a living, right? And you look back and you're like, wow, all these different milestones, all these things that people have adopted. I just happen to be the first one. Not because, I want to be the first one. And to me, myself and my partner, we lived in this little bubble. It was like, we didn't really know that we had any effect on any other human being. Until one day I was at like one of these lead conferences, and a complete stranger, the lawyer, comes up to me. I had 2 incidents. Comes up to me and he goes, "I just want to thank you." I go, he goes, "Because we have been doing exactly what you do, and we're killing it." I'm like, and I walk away. Wait, okay, right? And I'm like, how do you know what I do? What do you? I couldn't fathom it, right? Which means somebody's yapping about me, right? Otherwise, because there was no webcast back then. Nobody. I'm like, he wasn't my client. He wasn't a customer. I was like, wow, that was a mind-blowing experience to me. And then someone else who happened to work for Einstein, they went into his own thing. We're talking one day because somebody else who worked for me had did something to make it more difficult for me to sell Persist. Mm-hmm. And so he's telling me, this guy's trying to screw me. And we're talking. He goes, I wanted to tell you something, that we had to change our whole entire way of doing business because of you. What are you talking about? Well, when I used to work for Einstein Law, and then it was Wise Law, we sold leads. Everybody sold leads. These leads came from the internet. Now, they didn't come from Facebook. There was no Facebook.
Right.
It was email. You sent an email. Hey, did you get this?
Email, yeah.
Well, it's mainly email and some pay-per-click. So we get okay. I'm trying.
Einstein, the guy.
All right. So okay.
Yeah.
So because when I'm using the names, I
yeah.
All right. He tells me that I caused him to change his whole way of doing business. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, we used to just sell leads. Now because you're co-counseling contracts, other law firms want signed contracts. They don't want to deal with it. Now we have to go get a call center because of you.
Wow.
Oh my God. Because you changed the whole industry. Now, why did I do that? You think I cared about the industry? No, this is what happened. I was in a litigation as a law firm. It was Vioxx. I referred 1,000 leads to XYZ law firm, one of the most prestigious PI mass tort firms in the country. Leads. 4 months later, I'm there in their 8 o'clock in the morning. They have a yearly conference. I confront one of the partners who's an ex-attorney, lieutenant governor of the state.
Oh, wow.
Hey, fire sale. We have 1,200 cases. We did so good. What are you talking about? 130 cases, he says. Oh, excuse me. And basically, I didn't get that one. Oh, I didn't get that one. Oh, I had that one before. Oh, I never heard about that one. So I went from like 1,500 to 400.
Wow.
And what did it teach me? To put my name on every retainer.
For sure.
And unbeknownst to me, that caused everybody else to do the same thing. So I now, because I guess, people now know that I have the knowledge, I have the connections, and I'm a very honest person.
Right.
That if a campaign doesn't work, I make good with most marketing guys. Because I'm a lawyer, so I see from two perspectives. There's not too many guys out there who are both running marketing firms and law firms. There are a couple, Seth. Yeah. But so you see from different perspectives.
Right.
So yes, at this point, I feel like I'm one of the OGs.
Definitely OG. Definitely OG. And with that said, OG, we're going to jump into some rapid fire.
All right.
Rapid fire questions real quick before we shut everything down. What makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
What makes me inspired? Creativity.
If you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
Don't change a thing.
What is your best tip for making the world a better place?
Give back as much as you can.
Favorite
Don't
movie?
be greedy.
Favorite movie?
Can I get you two?
Sure, please.
Godfather.
Yes. Which one?
1 and 3. Oh, 1.
You like 3, huh?
I mean 1 and 2.
Oh, okay. 1 and 2. 1 and 2.
And this is going to be Dances with Wolves.
Beautiful movie. Kevin Costner, yes. Amazing movie. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
It would say, be fair.
Nice.
I don't think I have to say why.
No. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
I'm an extroverted introvert.
That's become very popular. I know what it means.
What it means is I'm not great with big crowds until I feel comfortable.
Yep.
But once I'm comfortable, I can't shut up.
What is your biggest pet peeve? What is your biggest pet peeve?
Greed.
Favorite subject in school?
Quaaludes.
We'll stick with that.
My daughters aren't going to like that.
No, it's fine. Yeah,
it's
honest.
No, let me back. My favorite, I wouldn't say subject, my favorite class was drafting. And to this day, I wish I would have been an architect. I probably wouldn't be where I am financially, but to this day, I still see like when I build a new house or I do a new office, I'm always better than the contractor as far as spacing it out. And it's really odd because you would think someone with ADHD, how could, of all things, sitting at a drafting table,
right? It
made me focus. It was the only thing that I had. It made me focus.
Why don't you do it?
Because for what? I'm not trying.
Why not? Why not get one of those drafting tables?
Now they use CAD.
Yeah, but still, just draw shit.
What am I going to do?
For yourself, yeah, to learn to focus.
I might. I didn't realize it.
No.
You know what I mean? I had a tea thing. I had all the fancy.
If you could have coffee or a glass of wine with a historical figure, who would it be? And I know you know history because I've been with you where we've had a big. I gotta second that one.
Because my question to him would be, if you own my company, how would you scale it?
I actually had the benefit to be with Pablo Escobar in Carlos Letter in Armenia, Colombia.
Well, that's where you're from.
When I was very little, my dad was actually a very good friend of Carlos Letter's, and they went to school together.
What was his nickname? The nickname.
Yeah, I forget what his nickname.
Jackal.
Yeah.
He had
He had
planes. He had his planes.
Yeah. I mean, he had a whole different
He was the one who basically said to that you need to start using planes.
Right,
Stop these
exactly.
trucks. That's
Well,
it.
because he was in jail here in the United States for transporting weed. So
They
in
let
here
him
he
out?
met and then he went back to Colombia and brought back and they formed the cartel. But he had a place called
He was.
La Plaza Alemán
He
in
met the guy
from that movie.
who was playing the
George Young or something
right
like
in
that.
jail.
Right.
Who was right? Those are
Yeah. So
one of my
I
favorite.
wish I had the picture, but we were in a plaza in Colombia,
In
and it was
Medellin.
we were in it was in Armenia because Carlos Ledet had his zoo
Say that name.
in Armenia, Colombia.
How far? Like, where is that outside?
It's
of
probably like 2 hours from Medellin.
Also near where Pablo's place. What was it called? Hacienda.
La Hacienda. But I think that's in Medellin though. So Medellin,
Well,
Armenia,
no,
are very
well, it was
close.
like
Yeah,
it was in the jungle.
right. And they have a big hippopotamus plot.
Yeah, I was going to say they have a problem now. They don't know what to do with the hippos.
Yeah.
It was
Pablo,
very
that's a good
interesting.
one.
When I was in Colombia about 2 years ago, I'm like, Pablo Escobar.
Yeah. Did you do the tour?
Well, they don't want you to.
Because the guy who's running it is
No, it's not that. It's the locals don't look at him as a hero anymore.
right. They don't want to promote
I'm going
it.
to tell you a crazy story, okay? I was on a blind date, and I meet this young lady, and she tells me she's from Colombia. Wow, you're from Colombia? This is when there was a TV show on Netflix called Pablo Escobar from Colombia
Right.
with subtitles. So it wasn't Hollywood crap. So I watched everyone like 3 times.
Yeah, they were great.
It was amazing, right? So fast forward a year or two, and I meet this young lady, and she's telling, I'm from Colombia. And I'm like, wow, this guy Pablo, what a genius! The guy uses submarines. And she looks at me, she goes, genius? And she rolls up her shirt, and her whole arm is scarred. And she goes, this is from one of his sicarios who threw a bomb into my village, into my what do they call it? I forget what the word for the ghetto, whatever they call it. In Colombia, what's the term? Not.
But I know what you're talking about, the ghetto.
There's a term that they use, and that's when I said, "Oh my God, you have a big mouth. You need to learn before you say shit, right? Because you never know who you're talking to." Taught me the lesson of a lifetime.
You never know.
Plus, it also showed me that I thought I was a big deal American, knowing about Pablo, and I know she was thinking,
And you don't know the
"You're
truth.
an idiot." This guy was cruel. This guy didn't care. All he cared about was himself. He didn't care who he hurt, as long as he didn't get to jail. And that's, you know what I mean? And that's really what Pablo was.
Yeah.
This whole thing, don't extradite, was all about, I don't want to be in American jail.
And he never got to enjoy it. I mean, there are pictures where he enjoyed it, but imagine hiding and running. I mean, do you know what was it?
You think of Chapo, El Chapo?
Yeah, same thing. He didn't enjoy it, but $20 million a day being eaten by rats.
Because they couldn't have nowhere to put
They
it.
had nowhere to hide the fucking money.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, there's another guy from the Sinaloa cartel.
Yeah, the Sinaloa,
that they've never even seen him in 20 years, and he's the exact opposite because they don't even know what he looks like. So, but yeah, you're always on the run.
There's another new Netflix episode which is really good, and these guys were the non-violent.
I'm not talking
recent one. No, there was a Netflix one, but there was the Colombian
Colombian
version.
one.
Yeah, that was
Right.
amazing.
That was the
first one
good
that came out. That was amazing.
Yeah,
that was so good.
First of all,
I
the
love
music.
the little pad, right? Like,
The music is great.
yeah.
Okay, and they keep, and there's 2 things. One is his saying was silver or lead, not a mal. Okay, and then there was a word, something del mal, the head of what they called it, the prince of of bad,
Right.
something del mal, and then there was
Plata o plomo. That's
Right.
what it was, plata o
and don't
plomo.
repeat if you don't know the past, you repeat it or something was on it. And I watched it. 3 days, I did nothing. I was so transfixed because it wasn't this Hollywood fluff.
Yeah.
He didn't have you could see his sneakers, they were like fake Adidas.
Yeah.
Right? Because in Colombia, you don't get real Adidas.
Right.
They're back in the 70s. You know what I mean? It was
Exactly.
real. They were using real places in Colombia, not Hollywood, studios.
My son's favorite picture is of Pablo Escobar and his son in front of the White House while the FBI and
Looking
FBI
for him.
were looking for him.
In front of the gates. I've
In front
seen
of the
that
gates
picture.
of the Washington.
Well, somebody recently bought his house in Miami and then blew it up.
Blew it up.
They're blowing it up.
Well, you know, his brother's like suing Netflix and stuff like that for
Because he
the
writes
rights,
all
for the rights,
books.
everything. Yeah.
And his son too wrote a couple.
Yeah. Oh, I read the book, The Sins of Your Father. Really good book.
Yeah.
Very good book.
Well, that the first series that we talked about was the son was executive producer,
narrating.
Right. You could see it was kind of my dad's a good guy.
Yeah.
He helps the poor, you know. But then you see from the other point of view, Popeye, his number one Sicario, he started becoming a movie star. He thought he was I killed 3,000 people.
Right, bragging about it.
And then when I was in Medellin, I had a friend who calls me up and he said, "Listen, we're going to go to the bar, but these two guys are going to take care of it. They're going to watch us." I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's a car." And I go, "You mean to tell me that he's a skinny little guy, smaller than me?" Because, you know, when you think of bodyguards, you think of like, you know, America. No. They're all packing.
Yeah, they're all packing. And they don't care.
And they would not leave my side until they knew I was safe in the elevator. It was an experience. So anybody should, you know.
If you haven't watched it, make sure you check them out.
The best part of Colombia that I had, the best story, we got a chance to go into the mountains and pick coffee beans, and you know, from this guy's small little farm, and watch how he cleans them, how every single bean he looked at. Like no.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this was an amazing episode with my friend and colleague Ed Lake. Make sure you tune in and check it out. Check out forpersist.com. leadersinmasstorch.com as well.
Yep.
And
thelakelawfirm.com.
thelakelawfirm.com. And if you want,
lawyersusa.com.
right. So if you want to get hold of Ed, tell him how
631-365-9077. If you'd like to answer any of your questions, Mass Tort related. Just a couple of things. Number one, I have a book, that came out. You're an author of it?
I am. Yeah, I'm
so
one of the...
So we do a plug for our book.
Yeah.
We don't have a picture of it, but it's Mass Torts A to Z. Great way, especially if you're like new to Mass Torts, you want to, whether it's a reference book or whether you want to use it as a general guide.
You can find the book
on Amazon,
on Amazon, and I have it posted on my Instagram.
I'm also about to do the second book, which is called Tech for Lawyers. But I'm now in chapter 42, so it looks like there's going to be a volume 1 and a volume 2. Every day there's new tech.
Yeah, new information.
Especially for legal.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Because we're starting to adopt it.
Right.
And finance tech gets, and follow up. There's so many different areas, sales tech, all related, that every time I think I'm finished with the book, it's going to change. So it's going to be, I think that's going to be really good. So
I love it.
Check it out.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Wine Wednesday. Salute.